Okay, it's noon here, so we're gonna get going. This is one of those cases of it's not broke, don't fix it. I was trying to minimize or get rid of some of the pages I had open just to increase bandwidth, and then it shut everything down. So let's just recap. Last week, we were looking at some of the basic setups of CLIPitc, specifically looking at the adding customers, creating customers, and then adding jobs and services to those accounts. And the next logical stage is what we're going to be doing today, which is what is known as kind of daily routines. Now, that's a bit of a misnomer because they don't literally have to be every day. You've got some ideas some options as to how you want to process work, as we'll see, and it doesn't have to be on a daily basis. It can be multiple times a day. Part of it is if you're using the app to get work, etc. So today, what we're going to cover is we're going to cover creating the schedule for the day. Then we're going to look at routing, having created the schedule, see what's on the schedule today. How do you route it most efficiently for your crews? Then having set up the schedule and the route, how do you get that information to your crews? And there are two ways we'll look at. One is through printing route sheets, a paper-based system. The other is through using the CLIPitc app, where your crew members out in the field, the crews can actually record start and stop times. Then, since the crew has now collected all this information, either on paper or through the app, what do you do with it? How do you get that into the program? And having covered those topics, that will then set us up to look at billing next week, because that logically comes after you do your work. You want to bill it out and get paid. All right, so let me just check on Knox here to see if it looks like it filled up. Yeah, let's just see. I was having trouble with my antivirus blocking this, but it takes a little bit. Oh, there we go. So that looks promising. All right, so we'll go back into the program. All right, so just again, we recapped what we did, but one thing I want to go into is to show you kind of what drives this next step. And what drives the next step is actually found in the jobs screen. So I come into this account at Acme Enterprise, Acme Properties, or Acme Enterprises, and then within the jobs for Acme, each job that has what's called a next visit date in it. So here we're looking at, say, bed maintenance for this customer, and it's got a next visit date of February 12, 2018. Now, that is when this job will appear on the schedule. If you ever have a question as to, okay, when is the next time we're going to do mowing for, John Bertrand? You would go into John Bertrand's account, go to the mowing service, and look at this date, and you would know then exactly when it's going to show up. The other features on this screen here more are about how it reschedules once it appears on the schedule. All right, so I wanted to call your attention to this next visit date down here. And then we're going to go into daily here. Now, daily is where we start the process of what we do from day to day. And I'm going to begin by clearing this. So I hit remove work. And I say, okay, I want to see what's on the schedule for today. You enter the date you want, in this case, today's schedule, today's date. I hit get work. And now it will go through every single job. Look at that next visit date. If the next visit date is today or earlier, it populates the list we're looking at. So this is all the work that is either on the schedule for today or is past due. And you can see a little summary here. So 74 jobs due or overdue for this day. 0 jobs are in progress. 65 total budgeted man hours, and your revenue is just almost $4,000, $37.77 there. And so that gives you kind of a snapshot of the day. So we're looking at the screen, and you've got some options. You can sort by due dates. and this will put it in chronological order. And so we see at the top of the list here, jobs for March 1st, some from yesterday, earlier in the week. And if we scroll all the way down the bottom, we've got all these jobs from back in February. So this is what's available to be done. Now, typically on this list, you should only see jobs that are due today or slightly past due. You don't want the situation that I had when I was at a CLIPitc users in Knoxville, Tennessee in August, and they had snow removal services showing up on this list. That's not the way this is to be set up. So here is the setup for the what's on the schedule, including what is past due. All right, so we've got what's on the schedule here. And the next step then is to route this. So we come in here under routing up here, click on routing. Now it pulls up this screen. So in this screen, we have a starting address here. Then we have a place where you could look at a specific job. So let's say you only wanted to do mowing, which is job 1. You could limit it to that. More commonly, you would do it by a crew. So we're going to do crew 1 to crew 1. And so then now I come in here and I hit get routing. And I've got a date range, so I'm going to actually get everything since the first of the year. You can narrow the date range if you only want the stuff that's, just yesterday and today, for instance. But I'll hit get routing. So here now is my route. So these are the jobs that are on the schedule that I want to put on the schedule for today. Now the numbers here correspond to the numbers over here. So 1, Penny Jones would be the first customer. And if I were to zoom in, and you should have the zoom, it's being hidden by my little smiley face. I gotta tweak this a little bit. So if I zoom in, I can see then who's, I can get more detail. And I can look down here, and so we've got 14 through 17 down here, so that makes sense. But I can change this. So Dudley Do Right calls, and he says he needs to be done first today. So you can click on Dudley and move him to the top of the list, and now he'll be first on the schedule. And if you hit save this time, this is the way the schedule will be printed out today. This is the route. But when these jobs get recorded and posted and rescheduled, Dudley will go back down the list where he belongs. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hose this list a little bit. So I'm going to come down here, put that down there, and I'm going to come here, put Adam right between there. All right, so you may come in and you're looking at this list and you notice, okay, wait a second, this is weird. I've got customer 6 down here, and I've got 16, 17, and that doesn't make sense. I don't want to come down here, do 6, and come back up here, do a bunch of work, and then go back down to Germantown. Now, so you say, well, what's the best order? Well, one option you have, which is really nifty in this, is not only can you manually adjust it as makes sense to you, and that actually helps with exceptions. So if you know someone always has to be done earlier in the day, you can put them there, even though it's not necessarily the most efficient route. But if you click Optimize Stops, Google Maps looks at all these addresses and puts the properties in the best order, according to Google Maps. So if you notice here, we've got job 6 down here, customer 6. Once we hit Optimize Stops, now we've got, these must be like 8, 9, 10, and 11 down here. So Google has actually given us a better route. Now you're still free to reposition things here. So if Donald Trump needs to be done first today, you can still pull him up to the top. So you can still manipulate this manually. And then when you get it where you want it, again, you can do the save this time, which again saves it this route for this day. But when things reschedule, they go back to their previous positions. You can also click Save Order Permanently. What this means is next Thursday, when these jobs show up again, they'll be routed in the best order, and you don't have to go through this process every day. So I'm going to click Save Order Permanently. So it says new routing sequence saved successfully. Okay, so what we've done is we've done the office side of what we have to do in terms of setting it up. We've got what's on the schedule for today. We've routed it the way we want to. The next step is, how do we get this to the crews? So we're in daily, we get work. Now, when we were here and we entered the date of March 1st, it went and looked at all the jobs that have dates associated with them, as I pointed out. But the CLIP has a separate way of doing programs and rounds. So let me just kind of recap that. So within patterns here, I'm not sure how much of this I covered last time, but one of the patterns you can set up are pattern programs. And what this means is if you have different programs you offer, and you might just have one, you can set up within that program the applications that you do. So here now is my basic program, and we've got these 6 applications: early spring, late spring, etc. So I've set this up as a program as in the patterns. And then what I would do is when I go into a customer and I'd add it to the customer. Now I won't go through that add process because I already have this in some accounts, but I will show you how that looks in the account. So we come to Bart Simpson and view more. And then jobs here. So they're still listed under jobs, but you'll see in a moment that it's set up a little bit differently. So notice here you've got this silver turf plan. And this now means that he's got that program in his system. Now, if I look at one of the applications, say the summer application, for instance, here's information about it. But down below, instead of a scheduling screen, you've got where materials would be listed for that application. Notice there's no date here. So the question is, okay, how do I grab my applications as part of my daily routines? And the way you do that is you come under daily here, and then you click over here on activate rounds. So I click activate rounds. And now on this screen, we've got 4 columns. The first column are all of our different programs, and we want to activate the first one. Well, we have a round 1 under these top 3 programs. So I choose the 3 programs I want. Then in this column, I choose round 1 for each of those. Okay, so every time you choose a program, all the individual applications or rounds within the program are listed over here. Now, you've got a couple of options to help you narrow the results geographically. You could choose what's in a specific zip code, or you can set up geographic zones. Now, I don't want to drill down too deeply into that, so if you have a question about that, I would commend our article on programs and rounds, or just shoot me or support an email. We can talk more about that. But it does allow you, if you've got distinct service areas where you've got a bunch of customers, to grab that service area so your guy's not driving all over the place, but he's limited to one geographic zone. All right, so having done my filters here. Okay, my smiley face is hiding my next button. Let me go here to the next screen. And this is now showing me all the customers who fulfilled that requirement. In other words, this is telling me all of my accounts who have that application. I'm going to go back a step because there are a couple things I want to highlight for you. One is you've got this number of days since last service. What that means is when you get into rounds after round 1, typically, you probably want to have a certain number of days elapse since the previous round. For instance, if you sign up someone late in round 1, and you go out and do his application late, you don't want to turn around and have him show up on the schedule for round 2 a week later. So by putting in here, it's like 30 days, 40 days, whatever, it'll only grab those customers where at least that many days have gone by since the previous round. And then likewise, you would put the crew here. So my applicator is crew 10. So now I'll come back to my rounds. And in here, you would then check off who you want. And if you check them all off, you'll see you've got some summaries down here. And you can, as you uncheck things, it then will adjust what you're seeing down here. So if you measure your work by how many rounds you want to apply or a dollar value that you want your applicator to do, you can monitor what down here as you check off on and off the customers here. All right, so having done all this, and I've got the customers I want, I then click Add Work. And now I get a message saying some of these rounds have service notifications. Do I want to send those out? Now, in this case, I'm going to say no. But that would just be a reminder that you've got notifications and you can send them at that time. So now it says 18 jobs processed up here. Now, if I close this out and I come back in here, see it says 74 jobs. Well, now it says 92 because as we look at this for crew 10, we see that the application jobs have now been added to the schedule. That's how you manage the scheduling for programs and rounds. It's not a date-driven schedule. It's what we call a zone type schedule. And so that's how you would get those onto the schedule in the first place. So I hope that little detour was helpful. I appreciate the question that led to it. All right, so to recap, what we've done is we have routed round one, the jobs for crew 1 for today. Now, as far as communicating to the crews, what they need to do, you would come in here. So we're in daily and there's a print route sheet option. So I click on print route sheet and it pulls me into the report section, which is where the route sheet's found. And now I come in here and I want to look at crew 1. And I can choose a date range again, and we've got different styles of route sheets to choose from. So we'll look at the enhanced route sheet. And then when you're ready, you hit show report. So here's what a paper route sheet looks like. So you're able to have there's a header here that's built in, giving a space for your employees to sign in and out. The style of route sheet I chose actually breaks down the budgeted time to how much clock time they have based on the number of people on the crew. If you have a 3-man crew, they don't have 27 minutes to do this. They have 9 minutes. And then this just gives them a clearer idea as to what the expectation is to get this job done based on how many bodies are on that crew. Then lower left, you've got the notes here with the Spanish translation. And then right here, you've got a place for them to write in a start and stop time. And then they can go down the next job and same process, start, stop time, how much time they've got on the job, no notes associated with this, and then you've got them going to the next service. So that's how the jobs work in terms of communicating with the crew if you want to go with paper. Now let me go back into the record work area, the work area. So go back to daily. And now I'm going to look at record work mobile. So this is a screen you'd be looking at during the day if you're using the app. And so we've got, we'll look at crew 1. Okay, so here's what we have for crew 1. Now I'm going to pull up the app. Knocks don't fail me now. Okay, so here's their screen on their phone or tablet. And then they've got CLIPitc as the app here. Go ahead, click on that. And it now pulls up a login screen for the user. It will remember the login, so they don't have to type that in every time. And then I'll hit login here. And now here's my work for the day. Now I want you to notice something. Look at the order we've got. Penny Jones, Penny Jones, Hans Buster, Hans Buster, Bill Crawford, Bill Crawford, and so on. So this order here corresponds to the order you set in the office after doing the routing. That means the crew will see automatically on the app the best order or the order you want them to go in to do their work for the day. And now, before we go into the detail about recording work, I want to look at a couple other things on the app. So notice a little sprocket here. The sprocket allows the crew to control what they're doing for the day in terms of who's on the crew and what crew they're going to look at. So we're in crew 1, but there are other crews here. So if this is crew 3 logging in, they can see their work too by choosing the right crew. They can choose what they want to see. They can see today's work only, tomorrow's work, this week, all schedule. So we'll leave it at all schedule here. And here's a list of the employees who are normally on this crew. If Miguel is sick today, Steven, the crew leader, can remove him from the crew and come to add another employee and choose Dave Barry. Now, every job done today and recorded to the app will have these 3 crew members associated with it. Should you have any questions in the future about what happened on that property. One other thing you can do is see the middle up here. You've got this clock icon. You can use CLIPitc to gather payroll hours. So we come to Dave Barry and I hit punch in. And now we have an end time for him for payroll purposes. Now I don't stay on top of this, so we've got bogus times in here for the other guys. So this was last week for these 2. But that's how you can get some payroll hours if you choose to do that. Currently, we don't synchronize with any payroll programs. We'll just create a report for you, including in Excel, showing you what the payroll hours are for your guys. Okay, so then we come to the home screen here, which is their list of work. They are going to Penny Jones, they click on lawn maintenance, and if they're not sure how to get to Penny Jones, there's a little link here that would take them to Google Maps, and then that would give them directions on how to get to 217 East 5th Street based on the current location of their device and then the address to which they're going. Here are the notes, and you can set up in the notes, when you create the notes in the job, you can actually cause these notes to pop out, and that way they'll stand out more if you need to really put the notes in the face of your crew. And when they get to Penny Jones, they click the little arrow here, and now the job has started. Back in the office. So you've been, looking at reports here in CLIPitc, and you've been playing around the program. So I wonder what the crew's up to. Well, you can go back to daily then, click on Record Work Mobile, and notice, and if I click off of the Penny Jones, you'll see that the account is in yellow, and the done, it no longer says in for no, it says I for in progress. And so, okay, they're at Penny Jones. They got there at 1:27. Okay, back to the crew. So they're at Penny Jones's house, and so they notice that the grass is dying back under the oak tree. So they click Add General Notes, and they type in here, grass dying under oak tree in back, and they save this. Now in the office, you come in here and you refresh the screen, and a couple things you should note. You now have over in the left-hand margin this little balloon with an eye. That tells you that there is a note associated with this job. Also, it created a to-do. I believe we looked at the to-dos last week. They are reminders or action items you can create that are associated with a customer. In this case, it has created an action item associated with Penny Jones about this grass dying. Now, let me open up a second instance of the program so you'll see where that is. So as you may remember from last week, you're able to open up the program multiple times within your browser. So if you have to go from one screen to another, you can stay in the screen you want to and just go through a new tab into a new screen. So the to-dos, you know you'll have a to-do notification because of this orange bar across the top. And I click here to view them, and I scroll down to the bottom. Actually clean this up a little bit, not quite enough. And notice what the last one is. Grass dying under oak tree and back. Now this reminder is going to keep showing up until you do something about it. So this is great in that a note from the field about something that concerns a customer is not just a note that you have to jot down and pass to somebody to follow up on. It's actually an action item that can then be assigned to other people in the organization. Okay, so that's the to-dos there. Now again, from the app, we're looking at these. So that's the general note. Add signature. If your crew needs to get the signature of someone on site, they're able to collect that, and it'll be in history that they received it. Change crew. That means if this job is assigned to crew 1, but crew 2 is actually the job performing it, or the crew performing it, they can change the crew number. So again, you have in history an accurate idea as to who actually did this service. Set condition has to do with weather conditions. For certain applications, you may need to track wind speed, direction, temperature, etc., in order to legally apply a certain product. Skip job. That allows the crew to skip this job ahead 1 week. We're going to be modifying the settings so that you can disallow this, meaning that you may not want the crew to skip a job. You may want to reserve that for the office. So eventually you may be able to turn that off so that the crew can't see this. Likewise for add invoice notes. The invoice notes are notes that would go in front of the customer. You don't get a heads up if a crew member has typed in an invoice note. And so that may be, again, something you don't want the crew to have the ability to do. You want to save that for the office. And then material, if they use a material on this job, they're able to record how much was used. So here, herbicide is called for, or is a possible material, and let's say they used 0.25. So now you've got a record of the quantity of the material, and this will come in handy specifically for fertilization, pest control rounds as part of programs and rounds. All right, so now they are done at Penny Jones, and then you click the little box here, the little stop button here, and now this job is finished. And notice it's no longer on the list, but now Hans Buster is at the top. Back in the office, you refresh the screen. And you see they're done, 12:27 to 1:32. And if they start Hans Buster, then again, you refresh the screen. And the screen will refresh automatically if you click into some other part of the program and come back. So you don't have to keep hitting that little circle. All right, so now Penny Jones is done. Hans Buster is in progress. They started that at 1:33. So this is how you use the app to record work. Now, why don't we pause here and see if there are any questions at this stage before we look at recording work manually. So any questions about what we've covered so far? I did not see that question. I believe that you would send them out at that stage. Now, let me go into the other copy of CLIP just to go through that process. So we go to daily. But I think the emails will only go out to who you've actually, so I didn't use these two, so I'm going to use these two as examples. So round one and round one here. Next. So here would be the list of everyone with those. It's a short list. But if I only chose Acme Enterprises to do, and then I click add work, oh, I guess he doesn't have a pre-service notification, but that's where it would pop up. So it'll only send that pre-service notification for the ones you actually clicked on. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that you can edit the content of the pre-service notification. Sorry about that, my phone's ringing. So having done that, you can create the pre-service notification such that it says, today we are beginning round one, you will be serviced within the next 10 to 14 days or something. Now, again, I don't know how the what your rules are in your state, whether or not you have to send out that notification literally within 24 or 48 hours prior to, or if you're able to send it out, farther in advance, as long as you've notified them. So that's what we'd have to think through, but it will generate them for whatever you select. So if you use the office to control the amount that you're going to print out at any given time, you can then just send out to that smaller batch of customers. Does that make sense? Okay. Got another question about adding employees from Chris. What you would do, Chris, to add employees, that's done here on the employee tab. And then you'd set them up here. So you click new employee, add the employee, and then if they don't have to be a user on the app, well, let me go ahead and add an employee. I'll go through this because I don't think we've covered this. So I click new employee. And so the first name is John. Oops. I guess that's one way of spelling John. Last name is Calvin. And then you've got some, so they date hired today, and you've got some other options here, which I won't go over, but you can put their name and address here, their pay rate, and so on, but we're going to save them. All right, so now we have this new employee on our employee list. You add them to a crew by coming here to customize, and under the customize tab, you click crew. And then here is where you would add them to a crew. So let's say they're going to be on Jorge's detail crew. So I click on edit. Here's John Calvin. So I switch him over. Oh, that took me. And then I'm going to take Don Ivy off the crew. So that's how you set up at the office level the crews. So you start by setting up the employee here under the employee tab, and having added the employee, you then go to customize, and within customize, you go to crew, either here or over here on the side, and that's how you add that specific employee to the crew of which he's going to be a part. If they also need to be set up as a user, you come in here under users, and then you click add and set them up here for that. Okay, any other questions before we look at how to manually record work if you're using route sheets? Okay, Now, so we've been in record work mobile, and this has been showing us what's been happening based on the app. Let me go ahead and close out Hans Buster just so we have that one done. Okay, so there's Hans is closed out. Now this next, sure. Okay, are they exactly the same? I thought the little sprocket, like the settings and such, was at the bottom of the screen for the iPhone. Right, these lists look the same. Yeah. Yeah, so the only change might be the position of these three things might be at the bottom on an iPhone. But I mean, you'll see quickly enough if you take a look at it. But again, there should be nothing different enough to be disorienting for a user. Okay, so next we want to talk about, right here we're using the app, but let's say you've got a crew that they're all thumbs, you don't want them to use the app, they're out with paper, you want everyone to use paper. How do you record that information? We do that by coming to record work here. So we've got record work mobile and then record work. And here now, we're going to change this again. So we've got that from a while ago. So I'm going to go to the first here and crew one. All right. So notice we've got the jobs that were done and recorded in the field. Now let me say at this stage, let's say that there was that Penny Jones, the job actually started at 117, not 127. And so you have to edit this. So what the crew does in the field isn't the final word on the data that you post in the program. You have control over modifying it. So I would come in here, I would click on the little sideways triangles, and this allows me to expand the screen or that line. So here's the detail, here are the guys who are on this, and so on. So what I would have to do actually is, if I need to change those times, I come in here and click on each of the employees here to change them. And then I hit save here. So now I saved the times on this job. So it starts at 117 to 132 for that. So that's how you would edit work that had been entered through the app. Now, if you're working off of paper route sheets, so now you get a paper route sheet and you're entering the information, you come to Bill Crawford. So you click on the little pencil here, come in and where it says done in this column, you hit Y for yes, this was done, and tab, you tab over, and this started at 142. Now, what you can do is if you do military time, it always gets the AM PM right. So we'll go 142 to no, not 14. See, I don't know military time that well. So 142 is 1342, so to 1405. And so then you hit save. So that's how you would enter information manually from paper route sheets. You just, again, click on the pencil. Now my internet's a little slow right now, so that's why this is taking a little longer than it would probably take for you. So then you come in here and it's 1408 and 1500. Now you also have next to it a little clock. So if it happens to start or end on the quarter hour, you can go in here and select through the time picker what time it was, and then you hit save. Okay, now we occasionally get the question, what if you want to record the work but don't want to record times? And we strongly encourage you to record times because that gives you very valuable information to then tell where you're making and losing money. But if you're adamant about, no, I don't want to record times, the way to bypass that is actually back here under Record Work Mobile. And so here, so we're going to look at a Harry Potter. So a second, let me. So you select Harry Potter, just click on that line. And then down here, you notice you've got some options for this. So I'm going to click Start. And notice the Start button changes to Done. Then I just leave my mouse there and click Done. It says yes here to finish. And now I've recorded that this job was done for Harry Potter, but I've not recorded any times for him, or at least any accurate times. It does fill in those fields. And then I want to continue doing this, so I click down for Bob Hope and repeat the process. So I hit Start, Done, yes. Almost as much work as actually recording times. I think that's an intent on the design. And now, so, and if you're recording from paper and you have materials, so under the material section here, you can adjust what materials were used, add, record the materials manually that way. Likewise, you can view notes here, just like we, normally you would have, done. But this will actually show you, all the notes associated with this account in this visit here. All right, so having then recorded this work, so we'll go back under the Record Work section. The next step is to finalize it. And you finalize the work, or you know what needs to be finalized by these check boxes. But before we go to finalize, let's say that you've got a couple days worth of route sheets you're recording. And some of these jobs were actually done yesterday. So what you would do is you would come in here to date completed, and you would change it to the 28th. And then you would check those jobs that were actually done yesterday. I'm going to hit replace date. Now, this is the column we're dealing with, the date done. So I hit replace date. And for those I checked off, those top three, notice those now say for the 28th, and the ones below are for the 1st. And now those are the dates these will be posted for in customer history. And then when you've got all this the way you like it, you can click on the little checkbox here and hit finalize selected. But before I do that, just want to ask if any new questions have come in, Bill, or if anyone has a question before we finish up on the record work process. Okay, well, yeah, I see the one above it too. That's something for Sue about snow removal. Okay, let me talk Sue. So regarding the mobile app he was showing, is the view and how to use the same on an Android? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I saw something about snow. What did I? Okay, I guess I misread that. Need new glasses. Okay, let's say I enter data from the paper route sheet and accidentally record the work under the wrong client. How do I undo that action? I tried entering that job again and changing Y to N, and does not work this way. All right, so in other words, before you finalize the job, you've entered it, you record, okay. Well, let's take a look. So I'm gonna uncheck all these. So I'm in the record work screen, and let's say Dwayne Johnson really wasn't done today. So if I click on here, the pencil to edit, and then I come in and I hit no, and then I hit save. Okay, cannot, because there are employee times entered to mark job as no, you need to delete the employee times entries. To add more times, mark this job as I, and it will save the current times. Okay, let's enter it. Let me go in. So let me come in here. So I'm gonna cancel this. I'm gonna click on the little arrow here. And so now, crap, I think I'm gonna get a message here, aren't I? No, maybe not. I was afraid I was gonna get a message that, yeah, there we go. That's a message. So I've got to do all the start times first. See, this is another good reason to use the app. All right, so now having done that, I hit save. Now I come in here, I'll close this, hit the pencil. No. Ah, okay, what happened there? Oh boy, that was a stumper. Let me go back in there and take a look at why that happened. I wonder if it repopulated the times. Let me go in and take a look. Yeah. Okay, oops. So, all right. So here, I don't have a start stop time there. All right, let me try this again. I wonder if there's a save button I failed to hit. Okay. Either start time or end time is not selected for employee number one. I know that. So I close this. Okay, well, Mr. Seagroves, make a note. I need to look into this because it's not performing according to what I thought it was. So we will cover this first thing next week. So, okay. Save the button on upper right. If I'm going to record work mobile at the office, does anything happen to the work scheduled on the crew phone app? Will the crew know that I've got record work mobile open? Sue, they will not. I mean, they won't. They don't know anything except what they see on the app. The only thing that they'll know about the office is if you schedule something for today that wasn't initially on their schedule, and then next time they look at their list of work, they'll see that new job then added for that. Okay, so, all right, so I will go ahead and work on getting you an answer for that. In fact, I'm going to leave Dwayne Johnson open. But what you would do then after you've recorded work, you check off what's been done and you hit finalize. And when you hit finalize, three things happen. One, the job gets recorded in the customer's history as having been done on that day with that crew during that time. The second thing that happens, the job gets rescheduled. If it's a weekly job, it'll automatically then get rescheduled for a week later. And finally, it's set up for billing, which is what we'll look at next week. So I'll go ahead and finalize. And now those jobs have been finalized, and Dwayne is still here because I didn't check the box for Dwayne. And it gives you a little number of records finalized, or 5. Once you've done your finalizations, I guess, you can say, okay, well, can I get a report as to what I did today? And the answer is yes. So you come to reports here, and under reports, you've got the daily work report. We click on that. And it pulls up the date. So we'll actually look at yesterday's date. We posted jobs for 2 different days. We'll hit show report for yesterday's date. So here's a report showing you what's been done. And you've got the Penny Jones, the address, Hans, Bill, Dwayne. Oh, Dwayne did show up. Must have been so. We'll have to look at that. And so here's now what the amount was collected, how much time it took, or the budgeted man hours are here, man hours is time, and then here's how you did. Let me scroll down so I can scroll to the far side of this report. So here's how you did on a $1 per man hour basis, including all costs. So that gives you an idea as to what happened that day. You can say to the customer, to your crew, what happened at this particular account. So this gives you kind of what we used to call in other versions of CLIP, or we still call that, the final list of work done for that day. And it can be printed and it will show you for all your crews that work that day. So that's the report that you could generate then once the work is finalized. And as I said, then the next step will be next week to look at how that ties into the billing process. So I think we've covered everything we officially want to cover. So we do have we have some time left to kind of we can do a little bit more open-ended questions if you want. Although if you have a billing question, I may defer answering it till next week to illustrate that. But otherwise, we can go ahead and see what other questions that we've got. So let's see. Anything on your end, Mr. Seagroves? Yes. Okay, well, it's open mic then. Oh, okay. In the record the work, can you change prices and add invoice notes for more description? Yes, although I'm feeling a little gun shy about saving those, but let's take a look and see. So let's go into record work. We've got Dwayne's Johnson should still be there for us to look at. So I can hit edit here. You know what? I think I might have figured out why. Well, here, let me just. So here we've got now the job charge is $75. You see that here. So let's say it should be $125. So I change that. So that's $125. Close. And there it's updated. Similarly, so we click in here. Oh, sorry, didn't need to click in there. Click on the job notes. And invoice notes, please make sure you pick up the kids' toys. And now we've got the note there. Okay, then we've got another question. When adding materials to a job when recording work, how do you know it's adding the charge to the service? Okay, you don't, because in the program, when you set up materials, you've got 2 options. One option under materials is to have the materials bill out separately. So here's the material for bagging. So we can hit down here, choose charge material on invoice. Now, if you bill through QuickBooks, this would say transfer invoice to QuickBooks. And then you can say no or yes. I mean, transfer charge material. So that if I selected yes here, then you'd have the charge for the job, and underneath it you'd have the charge for this or any materials along with the price in those materials. Otherwise, you have to manually add the material price to the price for that job. So that's I want to say that development eventually will give you the option of having that for time and material jobs specifically, having that material cost added to the job price. And so you get one bundled price consisting of both the labor and materials. But at this stage, you only have two options. You can print out the total price for the job, and you have to manually add the materials to that price, or you can print out the price for the job and list beneath that the materials used with the price of those materials on the bill. So those are that's your options at this stage. All right, what are the main differences between Record Work Mobile and Record Work? Well, when you come into Record Work Mobile, it doesn't let you edit any of this information like Record Work does. So that's one difference here. Otherwise, it would let you add materials, do job notes. It won't let you, so you can't edit any information once it's come in from on this screen, once it comes in from the app. So I'd say that's one of the major differences here. Now, by the way, let me take a little side trip before we go into Record Work. One thing I didn't cover is the skip function. So let's say that they get to Donald Trump's house and he's having a big afternoon luncheon for the Democrats and they're not able to do the work there and they need to skip it. So if you select Donald Trump and you hit skip job here, it then gives you the option as to when you want to do this job. So the next visit's the 26th, it suggests the 5th. We like that date. So we're going to click move to suggested date. And then there's a note to explain it. Had lunch in yard or something. Oops. Yard. And then save. So now Donald Trump is no longer on the list. He's been skipped and rescheduled in for the future. So then finally, you've got under Record Work, you've got the means to edit information. And one other thing, sorry, grouping. Let's say that Adam Taylor and Paul Miller and Kenny Cross are all neighbors. So when the crew does this work, they make one stop and they do all three of the properties. What you're able to do is you're able to come in and hit add job to group. And so we've got Miller and Cross here. So then we hit close. And now when I hit edit here for the times, okay. So now we've got these times all distributed proportionally between the jobs based on the budgeted man hours for those jobs. So that's how you do grouping. You can then get one start time, one stop time for a bunch of jobs, and it will then bundle them together for you. All right, so another question. So what is the best way to handle adding charges to a service? Is there no way to do that while recording work? I guess I don't understand what the process is. All right, so let's go in and take a look at that in a little more detail. So we're going to come into, we're in record work. We got Cleopatra White. Oh, this is good. It's a landscape install. So I'm going to hit the edit. Then we do yes. And it was okay, and they worked late that night. Then click add to materials. That's correct. If you bundle 3 customers into a group, you might lose data as whether one is taking longer than budgeted. That is correct. So what we often suggest is that every so often you go to the trouble of recording the actual time spent on each job for those jobs that are normally bundled or grouped together. Okay, so now we come in here. Now, if you already had the material set up, they'd already be in here. But for this part, you can go ahead and select what was used. So use grass seed here. Quantity was 10. And then we go ahead and hit save. Now, again, if you want to add this as a separate line item, you would set it here. So let me hit save for that. And then we go in and let's see, we do some mulch. We did 8 mulch. And then we come in here to one more. We're going to do rose bush. So we did 5 rose bushes. All right, so now we close. Now we have these materials here. So one thing would be that you can come here and say 15, 240, that's 265, 365, $416. So that's what this is. I then hit add. Oh, nope, wrong add. Here, close. And so here I've got a charge. Now we can edit the charge here. So let's say 416 is the materials and 800 is the labor. So you can do 1216 here and then save. So that's one way to do it. Now, Bill, I don't have a place to write down a note, but if you could take a note that if in the material screen here under adjust, if there could be like a total on the screen, that would make it easier so you don't have to either add it with a calculator or mentally. So say down here, total materials cost or something. So that way the user can easily see that and then combine it. As well, give the option, add this to price per job. So those are a couple ideas for development. Okay. Anita, when I add extra charges to service, I just make a note in job notes, which appears on the invoice. Then when billing, we manually add description for extra service being done and add the extra charge while billing with QuickBooks. Okay, so let me read that again for folks who are, interested in the topic. So Anita says, when I add extra charges to service, I just make a note in job notes, which appears on the invoice. So those are invoice notes. Then when billing, we manually add description for extra service being done and add the extra charge while billing with QuickBooks. One thing, Anita, if you remember that for next week, when we look at billing, maybe you could help walk us through that so we see how that works in your setting, because others might benefit from that process as well. So I appreciate that, and thank you for sharing that. Okay, any other questions that are coming up? The questions are always great because sometimes they reveal areas where we can strengthen the program. And that's how we've been in business 30 years, is the ability to take into account what our users need, to listen to that and add them to the program. All right, I hear someone's mic's on. A question? Well, you can activate for round 2 anytime you want. So you don't have to wait till literally every single round 1 application has been finished. And if you do then look at round 2 before round 1 is finished, so let me pull this up and we'll look at so here's crew 10, my applicator. So what you would see is we got the early spring here, and then you'd see below it, the second round listed there. So you'd see everybody on the list, the remaining round 1 plus the round 2s once you've activated them. Well, what happens is when you get ready to start the next year, because when you talk about rescheduling, I think about, okay, you need to come up and start doing round 1s again in the next year. And when you do a round 1 this year, it changes the status of it to active to done this year. That way it doesn't keep pulling up on the schedule for you. So once it's done, it changes the status in that round to done this year. So at the end of the year, what you do is you come in under customize here. There's end of year functions. And end of year functions allows you then to reset programs and rounds. So if I choose all of these and hit process, that means every application is going to go from done this year to active and thus be able to be on the schedule for next year. Does that make sense? Okay. Any other questions? Okay, well, as usual, if you have any questions after this, let me know either by emailing billc@clip.com or here's something. We're coming from the old clip, how do we do rounds? You have to set them up manually. They won't transfer from being set up as a job to being set up as a program. And so what I would suggest you do is in CLIPitc, click on help here. And that takes you to our help desk. And this is good for anyone who wants more information. Then just type in like programs. And then here it says, creating and implementing programs and rounds in CLIPitc. Click on the article, and this will tell you how to set that up. So now, as coming over from the old clip, you don't have to use programs and rounds. It'll still work using your applications as jobs pretty much the same way. So if you have time to make the switch before you start doing applications, great. If you want to delay this till next season, you can as well. You can keep using it as a job. Okay, anything else? As I was saying, you can shoot me an email, billc@clip.com or sales@clip.com or support@clip.com. And next week, one thing we'll cover is we'll see if we can get Dwayne Johnson's work posted or edited or unposted, I guess, unrecorded, sorry. Anyway, I hope that you all have a good afternoon, and I'll look forward to seeing you again